Tensura What If? Silver Timeline by CBCTEBAS Chapter 90 Holy Empire. Chloe and Hinata exchanged anxious glances, their worry palpable in the air. It had been months since the storm dragon had last stirred. His silence was unsettling. Rimuru had attempted to locate him once, but that had coincided with Milam's capture and subsequent rampage, which had caused chaos. Unlike Luminos, who remained blissfully unaware of Night Rose's destruction, the rest of them were merely biding their time, anticipating his arrival. Rimuru-san. Veldora-san should have arrived last week, Chloe said, her brow furrowing as she counted the days in her mind. She was acutely aware of the timeline, and the change in Veldora's behavior was gnawing at her. Velgrind gazed up at the clear sky, her expression indifferent. Maybe he won't come, she shrugged, a hint of skepticism lacing her tone. The two girls turned to her, eyebrows raised in disbelief. This Veldora isn't as reckless as the old one, right? You mentioned that the future Veldora fears me and enjoys rampaging. The Veldora in this timeline is obedient to me. He only rampages occasionally, and usually under Guy's suggestion. Hinata frowned, troubled by Velgrind's words. That may be true, but he has been missing for months. Something might have happened. What do you think, Rimuru? She turned to him, her voice filled with urgency. The three women's eyes shifted to Rimuru, who was lost in thought, muttering quietly to himself with one hand resting thoughtfully on his chin. As he felt their stares, he blinked and looked up, startled. I was just asking what you think about Veldora going missing for so long. He should have attacked this place last week, Hinata reiterated, a note of annoyance creeping into her voice, though she kept her frustration in check. I think he's captured, Rimuru replied, waving his hand dismissively as he revealed his speculation. His casual demeanor only deepened their confusion and shock. A smirk crept onto his face as he continued, I mean, it's obvious. The first thing anyone would think when someone's missing for several months is that they've been captured. Adding to that, I had Sarian, or should I say Laplace, investigate his favorite spot and found some small signs of battle that have lingered even after months. Velgrind frowned, her eyes narrowing. Then why did you look so serious earlier? Is there something else? Rimuru shook his head, his expression shifting to one of gravity, changing the room's atmosphere. The real issue is where the investigation leads. Jahil has also been suspicious. Why is he still in the Cardinal world? He should be with the snakes who are blocked by Ramirez. Silence enveloped the room as his words sank in. Are you saying there's a chance that the snakes are still in the Cardinal world despite Ramirez's barrier? Velgrind's eyes were sharp. And that they might be the cause of Veldora's silence? Rimuru nodded, and a quick surge of magicule erupted from Velgrind, which he managed to contain. Calm down. For now, we don't know where he is, and getting angry won't help. He reached out, taking her hand and caressing it gently with his thumb. Velgrind let out a small groan, her anger dissipating under his soothing touch. Hinata interjected, Ramirez is in a weakened state, right? She should have already reincarnated into her fairy form, but due to you, it might take a few more months, or even years. Do you think they planned all this? Chloe pondered, recalling the clash between Milam and Guy. She shook her head, dismissing her thoughts. No, they wouldn't have known Ramirez would intervene. But did they arrive before the barriers were erected? She began to mumble to herself, lost in speculation. Suddenly, Rimuru stood up, startling the others. Hypothetically, let's say they did know Ramirez would weaken during the clash. They have Veldora, and Ramirez is basically bedridden until her reincarnation. He frowned, the weight of his words hanging in the air. If it were me, I would strike while she's vulnerable. His statement reverberated through the room, and as the others processed his words, their expressions shifted to alertness. I'll go check on her. I'll go too. Velgrind stood, locking eyes with Rimuru, her determination evident. He nodded, and in an instant, they vanished, heading toward Ramirez's labyrinth. A bit farther from Night Rose, a man clad in a mask and a robe that enveloped his entire body sat cross-legged on the grass, accompanied by a blond man. They're gone, he said, a smirk stretching across his lips. It took a lot of waiting, but they finally made their move. I will too. He stood, brushing off his pants and stretching his arms skyward. Turning to his companion, he patted him on the shoulder. It's your turn now. Let's show His Majesty how useful and trustworthy I am, shall we? As he spoke, the eyes of his ally began to glow, radiating with energy. Slowly, the blond man's body expanded, transforming as his skin shifted to a deep blue, scales emerging and giving him a more reptilian appearance. Go! The man's grin widened as he commanded, and the transformed ally flapped his wings, lifting off the ground and soaring toward luminous Valentine's territory. Chloe was the first to sense the shift in the air, her instincts kicking in. A heartbeat later, Hinata's awareness sharpened. Finally showing yourself. No, Hinata-san. This feels different. Chloe unsheathed her sword, sprinting toward Luminos. Hinata, unsure, followed suit, preparing for whatever lay ahead. Chloe, what's got you so worked up? Luminos turned, having just concluded a conversation with Ashley. She tilted her head, scanning the area for any signs of danger, finding none. Have the vampires evacuate? A great danger is approaching now. Rimuru-san and Velgrind-san are out. Chloe explained urgently, her voice steady yet frantic. Hinata-san? No good, the area is covered by a barrier. I can't contact them. Hinata shook her head, focusing her thoughts on reaching Rimuru. Without hesitation, Luminos took charge. Gunther, prepare the evacuation with Louise. Make the new location the planned Holy Empire project site. Roy needs to alert the soldiers to manage the evacuation. Gunther, who had appeared at the sound of his name, bowed and swiftly set to work. Turning back to Chloe, Luminos's expression hardened. Can you explain what this great danger is that necessitates evacuation? Chloe paused, her gaze darting until it locked with Hinata's. In a sudden movement, she grabbed Hinata by the shoulder, using her as a human shield. Hinata can explain it quicker. Hinata froze, glaring at her. Really, Chloe? Sighing, she addressed Luminos. Luminos-sama. Please don't be angry. This is one of the predetermined points in the timeline. The destruction of Night Rose is a necessary sacrifice. The Storm Dragon is set to obliterate this place, but this time feels different. The intent and danger have shifted with the changes in our world. We must focus on escaping and contacting Rimuru for now. Luminos's eyes widened, her lips pressing together until she drew blood. My Night Rose. Hinata nodded, her worry evident. Just then, a massive explosion erupted near the city's border, flames and dark smoke spiraling into the sky. Luminos gasped, watching in horror as a colossal dragon roared and unleashed another devastating breath attack. That damn lizard, she shouted, drawing her sword as she soared out of the castle. Wait, Luminos-san. We still don't know who is behind this, Chloe called after her. But Luminos was already flying away. Hinata glanced at them before veering in a different direction, focusing on contacting Rimuru. The masked man watched as Veldora roared, demolishing more than a third of the city in mere minutes. He sure is something. No wonder he enjoys rampaging, he chuckled, noticing two women heading toward Veldora. This isn't as fun knowing Velgrind is with that silver god, he muttered, clicking his tongue. With a snap of his fingers, he began to gather energy into his palm. You have too many girls for a god. Let me help you with that. A small, palm-sized attack launched toward Luminos. Luminos-san, Chloe shouted, instinctively pushing her out of the way. She swung her blade, neutralizing the attack midair, her eyes narrowing as she fixed her gaze on the masked man. Whoa there, aren't you an eager girl? He laughed, drawing the curved blade and meeting Chloe's assault with a grin on his face, the clash of their swords ringing out in the chaos around them. As the battle continued, Hinata was reaching the edge of the barrier. If contacting Rimuru inside the barrier was not possible, she planned either to escape it or destroy it if possible. Finally reaching the barrier, she drew her sword and focused on slashing through with all her might. As she took her stance, she quickly jumped from her place as flames erupted from her spot. A clicked tongue was heard as a man appeared, looking disgruntled that his surprise attack did not connect with its target. I suppose this is to be expected. He took out two daggers, blazing with high heat flames. Hinata frowned at the sight of him. Should have known you would betray Luminos-sama, Ashley. She traded blows with the ancestor of all Enkis and Onas, dodging all flames coming her way as she plotted how to kill Ashley. Hey, do you really think we would remain under that woman? He grinned, transforming into a more flame-like form, akin to the known spiritual beings like Ifrits, but more powerful. Hinata donned her holy armor in response, before realizing the implication of his words. Shit. She turned to see a young girl with blonde hair, both eyes covered and wearing a hood. Chains began to envelop Hinata as Pippin recreated a sealing spell that she had managed to imitate before. Hinata was too late to realize the sealing was happening as she warded off the chains that clung to her body and limbs, binding her in place. Kukuku, useless. 5 sharp blades emerged from Hinata's chest, piercing through her holy armor. Ah, what a waste of a powerful beauty, the old man murmured with slight pity in his voice. She's too dangerous, Prelix. I doubt you could turn her even if you wanted to. Ashley moved forward, preparing to finish Hinata off with his blades. Hinata looked at the trio. Is that all of you? To think you would betray Luminos-sama? I guess you found someone else to serve. Her voice laced with anger and mockery directed at the trio. Prelix's eyes twitched at her comment. Facing Hinata, he grabbed her chin and glared as they stared into each other's eyes. Listen here, little girl. Just because you are liked by Luminos does not mean anything right now. She is about to die at the hands of our ally Apophis, who managed to remove my weakness to the sun. Don't you dare insinuate that we work under anyone, even our alliance with M. That is enough, Prelix, Ashley sighed, pulling the old Night Stalker away from Hinata. Pippin, how is the sealing holding? It has completely bound her, she won't be able to move a muscle, the high human girl explained as she observed Hinata's body. Such a shame. She would have made a good test subject. Hinata rolled her eyes at their unconcerned attitudes. Seems I am being underestimated, she sighed, having long since completed her analysis of the chains. Breaking the chains in a split second, she re-equipped her sword and decapitated the high human first before they could react. Prelix. Ashley clicked his tongue as he prepared for battle again, taking his flame-based form. This time, however, was different. Hinata was moving much more calculatedly, and he was being wounded. How? You shouldn't even be able to graze me. Hinata was slightly surprised by his confidence as a spiritual being. My sword, she simply stated as she stabbed him in the chest, destroying his spiritual body. The flames went out, and he reverted to his original form, slumped on the ground. Prelix took a step back, witnessing everything happen within a literal minute. You don't think that will work on me? I have absolute immortality and ultra-speed regeneration. He turned his nails into the sharp blades he had previously used to impale her. Thank you for mentioning the name of your ally, Apophis, was it? Seems familiar. A snake cryptid, right? Hinata positioned her sword around her head. Melt strike. Disintegration burst forth from the tip of her sword, directed at the barrier. A gap large enough to fit a person opened. Hinata turned to Prelix. My job here is done. I can take my time with your immortality. As she said those words, she sensed 2 beings appearing where the fight was happening. She began by taking his arms, then his legs. As they started to grow back quickly, she decided to fire holy magic to test for any difference. Seeing them grow at the same pace, she activated disintegration, which surprised her. Even disintegration. Ha! Please. Ghakk. Prelix, who had been overconfident earlier, shook as he crawled away from Hinata. Guess I should try it on him. Hinata sheathed her sword and sat on Prelix's back, letting her weight stop his advance. Placing her right hand on the back of his neck, she asked, this should work, right? Would you like to use C's life of ultimate skill? Lord of Subjugation Absalom? Yes, no? Yes. Prelix began to scream as his body felt like it was being pulled out from his neck. From the toes of his feet to every corner of his skin, to all his veins, they were all being pulled, his body bending as if it were being sucked inward. Gaak! Ah! His shout abruptly stopped as everything was sucked into her palm. Hinata stood up and looked at her hand, taking out a handkerchief to wipe her palms as she returned to where the others were. Sensing Rimuru and Velgrin's arrival, the masked man withdrew his weapon. Sorry, Missy, too late. Take this as a gift. As he snapped his fingers, the ground of the city glowed a menacing purple before he disappeared completely. Chloe quickly went and grabbed Luminos, who was still clashing with the rampaging Veldora, and flew away from the city. As she awaited the large explosion of energy, she heard a voice that sent waves of relief through her. Consume it. Dark smoke began to absorb the magic circle that was covering the ruined city. The place is already destroyed. We don't have to antagonize Luminos anymore. Rimuru shook his head as he watched Velgrind knock out Veldora. Luminos woke up from a comfy bed. Looking around, she noticed Rimuru holding her hand with a worried expression. You okay? You passed out of exhaustion after Chloe grabbed you. Luminos with hazy eyes began to recall what happened. Her knight rose, Veldora attacking, the ruins. Where are we? Her voice was solemn, much more quieter than her normal proud tone. In one of the first buildings made for the Holy Empire project. Everyone is accounted for and I had them start the construction of the human settlements. He began to explain as he caressed her hand. Hinata and Chloe should be actively preaching your name to local human settlements right now. What about my knight Rose? Rimuru sighed exasperatedly as he shook his head. I think you already know what happened. Luminos bit her lips, her knight Rose, her beautiful castle, the garden, the memories she had there. All of which are now gone, yet for some reason while she is angry, she can't stay angry. Hinata told me it was a certain event, that it needed to happen. Is that true? She turned her head to Rimuru. She wanted assurance that there was meaning to her home's destruction. Rimuru nodded. Yes, you made the Holy Empire to cover the new settlement for vampires which is hidden beneath it. You developed this strategy in case of another true dragon attack from Veldora. Luminos frowned. Veldora. That damn lizard. She shouted with disdain, recalling the calamity that his breath made to her city. Once I get my hands on him all. That won't be necessary. Rimuru clasped both her cheeks and turned her face to him. Their face inches from each other and their eyes staring to the depths of their soul. Letting go of her face, Rimuru turned to the door. As if on cue, two people entered after a quick knock. You? Luminos pointed, seeing the blonde man with tan skin, Veldora. I'm sorry. Veldora quickly apologized and bowed his head as low as he can. I destroyed your castle because I was being controlled. He turned his gaze sideways from shame. He then stood straight. I never intended to do that. I was told never to destroy cities without permission. I hope you can forgive me. Luminos was beyond shock, seeing the storm dragon, which was akin to a living calamity waiting to happen, apologizing, which looked genuine in her eyes. Turning her sight to the storm dragon's sister, Velgrind, who was standing beside him. She had an approving and proud smile on her face as she watched her little brother. Rimuru was giving Veldora thumbs up as well for willingly coming forward to apologize. Which would mean, Velgrind nor Rimuru forced this act. I heard from Big Sis Velgrind and Big Bro Rimuru that Knight Rose was important to you. So, if there is anything I can do to help, let me know, he grinned as he pointed at himself. Luminos' brain hurt seeing Veldora. She punched Rimuru at his side as she doesn't know where to direct her anger now that Veldora apologized with genuine remorse and even suggested reparations in any way she wants. It took all her strength, but eventually she accepted Veldora's apology. Then I'll be going now, just contact me if you need me for anything. Leaving those words, Veldora left the room. I'm proud of him. Rimuru smiled after saying goodbye to Veldora. The Veldora in my memory would have failed that and dug himself a deeper grave. Velgrind had a smug expression. Obviously, I taught him properly like a big sister should. She puffed her chest in smugness. Besides, Milam is growing into a proper girl her age as well. You shouldn't be too humble with yourself. By the way, where is she? Guy called for a meeting with her and Ramirez for something. He was very forceful on me not attending. I'll ask Milam later. Luminos, who was watching the exchange of compliments, stood from the bed and sat on Rimuru's lap as she leaned her head on his chest, crossing her arms. Velgrind looked at Luminos, who was pouting from frustration of everything that transpired, and giggled as she grabbed the doorknob. I'll leave you two then. She seems to be sulking about something. With a wave of her hand, she closed the door behind her. Rimuru looked at Luminos' adorable angry face, which refused to look at him. Are you angry with something? No, are you sure? Yes. Okay. I just hate that I can't vent my anger at anyone anymore. My precious Knight Rose is gone and the perpetrator had apologized and is not even the main culprit. Keep me company for now. Rimuru attempted to hide his laughter as Luminos glared at his half-hearted attempt to hide it. She grabbed his shoulder and bit his neck in retaliation. I hate you. Love you too. In a settlement nearby, Hinata walked out of the place as she finished basically what Luminism is and what it does. It feels weird to be the one starting this whole thing when I wanted to bring Luminos-sama down in the past after finding out her identity. She gasped as she set her sights on a different village. Meanwhile, Chloe was doing the same work while she wore her mask. She finished of a monster as it was previously terrorizing a town which was already half destroyed. Thank you, our savior, you saved our lives. People began to praise her as she watched a mob of people circling her. Thank you everyone. This place is probably not safe anymore. A bit west from here is a place guarded by the god Luminos. If you can try moving there, I can guarantee your safety there. With her words, she began to prepare to move to the next town. As she was about to leave, she noticed people packing their belongings and preparing to head west with their families. Everything should be going as planned for the Holy Empire project.